Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium for the 5th of May 2021. Today we're going to talk about the notion of trends, as this is something that's been occupying me a lot this past week. And the reason it has been occupying me is because I'm building a trend filter for the ASR, and it's proven to be quite the challenge. And the reason is, if you're looking at a data like price data or a secondary representation of price, such as some kind of an oscillator or the histogram like this, it's really difficult to quantify a trend. Okay, so if we just zoom out all the way and we look at this, and you can see that price is actually pretty sideways. Okay, but you can see as well that we do have these short-term trends that are going up and they're going down and up and down and up and down. So you can't really use this data to identify trends. Okay, and so in a situation like that, what you're forced to do is you're forced to look at something that's much more profound. Because if you have price that's, let's just use this example, is going like this. Okay, if you were to use a moving average, well, the moving average will just change the color to green. So the moving average would probably be like that, and then it breaks above and it goes like that, and when the price finally catches up, it's like this, and it's kind of a delayed thing because price is reacting quicker. So you have something like this. So by the time you say, okay, we're in an uptrend, and you can say maybe at this point here we're in an uptrend. Yeah, we're in an uptrend. But by the time you realize that we're in a downtrend, which is down here, or we're kind of at the bottom, and then you say, okay, we're actually in an uptrend, and so we're actually in an uptrend from around this point. We don't really have that much of a moving higher. Then you say, okay, and now we're in a downtrend, okay, and so you say, okay, now we have a bias to start selling. What happens? Price goes up. So that's really difficult to do. It's a really difficult way to quantify the existence of a trend. And so something else that I've been looking at, and this is something that's built into the supply and demand software, is trend lines. And trend lines are a more interesting and a more accurate way to quantify trends because they're actually showing you on a chart what price is doing. Okay, so if we have a look at this is a 4-hour chart, and we zoom out a little bit, is price going higher or is price going lower? If you can see here, price is going higher, then it was going lower, then it was going higher. Wait, it's actually going lower. Wait, it's going higher. No, it's going lower. And it's really difficult, and you go crazy and insane. So the better thing to do would be to focus on something like a trend line. Let me zoom in here so we see the data more accurately. And you can see here that despite the fact that the trend is down and up and down and up and down and up and down, then up and down and up and down and now up, the trend is in fact always been up for the entire time. And while we can look at the histogram data and just look at, for example, a fast average of the histogram data, there will be times when we're going to see price going like this. Now we're in a downtrend at the time when the market just turns around and moves in the opposite direction. Using trend lines on a greater time frame enables us to identify the trend without having to mess around with constantly changing data. And while trend lines are indeed changing on a pretty regular basis, they're not changing as quickly as secondary representations in price, such as the asset strength histogram. The asset strength histogram is really good at telling you when to get into trade. So sell, buy, sell, buy. It works really well. Okay, but we need to know which direction we should be trading. Should we be selling or should we be buying? Well, if you consider now where the trend is on the weekly chart, or we would be led to believe that the trend is actually moving higher, and so we can expect that price will have a higher likelihood of continuing to move higher than it would turning around and going lower. And this is based on the information that we can see here on the weekly chart. Okay, and so this is really interesting, and so trying to assess this information from a histogram is quite difficult. What I've done with the histogram is I've created a mean, and the mean is actually this yellow line or gold line, and if it's above the zero line, we're in a bullish trend. If it's below the zero line, we're in a bearish trend. So let's just look at how accurate that would have been. Let me remove all of the other lines as a matter of fact. We'll turn this off, false. We don't want to see the variance. We don't want to see the zero line. We don't want to see the histogram. We only want to see the trend. Let's have a look and see what that looks like. Okay, so now we can see that we have this. You can see the price is actually, the price of this asset is moving down. The histogram is moving down. It's starting to move higher here, starting to move higher. We moved down, we moved down, we moved higher, we moved higher, and now we're kind of moving lower, which you can see here. See, we're still stuck in the same, with the same problem. But what you could do is you could connect the price lows, or you could connect the mean lows and use this to draw a trend line, because this is going to be much more accurate. And so looking at this, I mean, if we connected this to here or this to here, I mean, they're both upward sloping, so we have an expectation the price for this asset is going to move higher. It doesn't matter what this asset is, it could be anything, but in this example the price would be moving higher, and this lines up very nicely with what we were actually seeing on the weekly chart, how price was wriggling north from here. Okay, this just gives us a really interesting and more accurate way to assess the trend. Another way that you could do this is that you could do something which I've often thought about, and that is that you could count the number of boxes above or below price. Okay, so if you're looking on this time frame, you can say, well, where do we have boxes? Where are the majority of the boxes there, above or below? It looks like we have, yes. So you can see, I mean, the ones that are dotted, they're no longer there. The ones that are above, they are still valid. So we have this one here, this is above, this one's above, and then we have this one here, which is below. And so you could look back in time and count the number of boxes. How many do we have above? We have 2. How many do we have below? We have 1. Okay, if you go back a little bit more, then we do have more. And so this will enable you to make decisions or make assumptions regarding the direction of the market based on the presence of these boxes. Because if the price excuse me, of an asset is going higher, well, then there are not going to be any boxes above price, but there will be boxes below. The opposite scenario, if price is moving low, we're going to have boxes above and no boxes below. So this is also a really interesting way to assess the trend. Okay, so I've just made an update to the ASR that I'm currently testing, and that is working on the hypothesis that if we have trend lines on a greater period that are moving higher, well, then there's a high expectation of price continuing to move higher than there is of price turning around and beginning to move lower. Okay, and so when you see this, let's say we're looking for entries on the 1 hour chart, well, we had a nice pullback here. Okay, but we have a trend that's none. Okay, so that means that on the daily chart or the 4 hour chart there is no trend. Let's have a look at the configuration, what it's set to. Trend, where are you? Here, so we are, yes, so we have one time frame greater. So we're looking on the 4 hour chart and there's no trend line. So the result is that we're not doing anything. But if I were to set if it was set to 2, there would be no trend line. We go to 3, then there would be an upward sloping trend line, which would tell us that we should be buying. Okay, so let's look at another example, another asset. This one here, doesn't really matter what it is. It's a pound Japanese yen. So let's see where we have trend lines, what they're doing. Actually, this looks an awful lot like the other one, doesn't it? That was also a pound pair. Let's go to the Kiwi cat, something very different. Okay, so this is, okay, here we have upward sloping on the hourly. On the hourly +1, we're going down. The hourly +2, we're going down. The hourly +3, we're going up. Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, so we have upward, downward, downward. So it looks like we're having a strong pullback on the entry time frame +1 and +2, and potentially move in the direction of the entry time frame +3. The robot got in somewhere in here in anticipation that price is going higher. I can see that I did not have the trend filter enabled because it said it's going down. So ideally, it should only be selling. So it should be waiting for the histogram to move positive, and then when it sees this, say goody, we should be selling. We want to be selling in line with the trend. Let's take another example. I have a bunch of trades open. These are all example trades. Let's just take this one here. This is a 4-hour trade. So is that really the same one? What are the odds of that? Okay, let's say Aussie franc. Let's have a look here. Let's put this on the 4-hour because this is a 4-hour trade. You can see here that, so actually this is a weekly. So this is a weekly trade. So we sold, and so there should be a short trend on the weekly. If we have a look at that, sorry, on the monthly, which is the time frame, yeah, you can see that boom, boom, boom. So I'm assuming that it's going to take either this high and connect them, or something in here. And okay, here, so it did that, which is the trend line is moving lower, but it looks like we probably have a deeper retracement. Okay, so it thinks that, yeah, I mean, it's a good idea to continue to sell. I don't know if I agree with that, but we do have a downward sloping trend line on the daily and on the 4-hour. So shorter term, we are seeing that we are indeed looking to move lower, which I think is interesting. Let's see if we can find another example. Let's take the Euro Kiwi. That's a weekly trade. Let's see if we can find a slightly shorter term. This is a 4-hour trade. So what are we doing? I mean, we bought. Okay, and if you look here on the weekly, we are moving higher, but on the daily and the 4-hour we're moving lower. So this one is also taken without the trend enabled, because if we look at this, you can see that the trend, which is the daily, is moving lower. So this one was taken without any consideration for the trend, and this is why the trend is really important, because you can get these really nice positions, but the problem is that when you're taking them in line with the smaller time frame flows, these are completely blind to what's going on in these major time frames. And when you're focusing on trend lines, like we've seen, well then we have a much higher probability of these trades working. Let's take another example. This is the Kiwi Singapore dollar. So assuming that we should be buying, I think we have maybe a trend line looking like this here. No trend line there. So this one will probably say none. So it's not going to do anything. We'll let it load. Okay, you can see here that it's none. So it's not going to take any trade. Even though we poke back into here, there wasn't any clear reading here, and so nothing happened. But what we could do is we could have a look at the configuration. Where's the trend? We could change this to 5 so it's slightly less significant. I'll do the same on the supply and demand software. Trend lines. Okay, that's set correctly. Yeah, there's still no trend line. You can see there's nothing's happening here, so this will result in the same reading. But on the weekly chart, we have a low, we have a high, we have a higher low, which has been respected for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And so we can expect that price is going to continue to wriggle higher. Okay, so this is telling us to go higher, which looks very clear here. Let's see what we're looking at. We're looking at that's really small. Okay, we're looking at the 4-hour trend. So we'll have to go here. We'll have to ensure that we have the same settings. Trend lines. Yeah, we've got to turn this to 5. In just a second, we'll probably connect this low to this low. So we have a trend line that looks something like this. Let's see if we do. Yes, and you can see that's exactly what we have. So that's giving us a bias. Okay, we're seeing that we have this low is lower than this low. Okay, so this is telling us that we have we have the thicker side of the market is below price, the thinner side is above price, so we only want to be buying. But when you have the trend that is too close to the entry time frame, these big pullbacks that you can see here are going to affect the trend. So you want to ensure that you are 1, 2, or 3 time frames greater. Otherwise, you'll probably get much fewer trades. So if we change this to current time frame plus 1, 2, well then maybe we'd have no trend. If we just do that very quickly just to see, for the sake of example, 2, then I think this will stop and say no, or none rather. There we are. So now you can see as well the trend is on the D1 and it says none. So there is no clear trend on this, and this is because we don't have any higher lows and higher highs, or low swing lows taking out previous highs. Okay, so there's no clear reading here. Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit, give you a little bit of insight as to what's going with the ASR, and also hopefully throw a little bit of light on the concept of trends. And if you're using the supply and demand software, it's built into the software, which is really nice. So you can simply just flick your symbols onto the chart like so, and this will essentially show you what's going on regarding the trend. And here we have a very clear trend. We have a high, we have a low, we have a lower high and a lower low. So here we have the slightly longer term downtrend, but the software picked up this one here, this low, this high, this low, and this higher high. So we can expect that shorter term we're going to continue wriggling higher. Okay, if we have a look on the 4 hour, what's happening? Well, here we have this really nice downtrend at an area of supply. This is beautiful. So we can expect maybe price to poke back up into this area here and continue moving lower. And there's no real supply until we get down to around here. Sorry, there's no demand until we get down to here. We have a look at the daily. There's nothing. It's unclear. We go here on the weekly. Well, then we have a clear uptrend. We have a low, a high, a low, and then price has respected this area for several weeks. So we have an expectation that price is going to continue to wriggle north from here. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, please drop them in the video or the Discord channel. Thanks for watching.